I'm super excited to chat with you. Like, legitimately, this conversation has been like forever in the making, like, like literally. So I'm so glad we're finally talking. I truly am just so in love with your story, and like it's super inspiring, and just, just the self-love component and what you're doing with everything. Like, you're like truly making an impact. Like, really, like literally today on Instagram, like every other post I see your shirts, and I'm like, this is
Aw.
so cool. It's so cool. Like, truly just like, our missions are like, um I know our missions are kind of aligned, just like just wanting to just teach every single woman that like she's worthy. And like, I know that you've been through it, so like I obviously want to dive in, but yeah, like I don't know. I love it. I love all of it. I love what you're doing, truly. And it's just
Thank
like
you.
so much fun to get to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. And like I have heard your story. I know you spoke at one of the events that we were both at, and I got to hear more about your journey of just like that feeling of like not feeling enough. And I know every woman feels that. But a lot of the times, like we pour into outside things for the validation to feel like we're enough. And so I really resonated with you and your whole journey with self love. And I knew we would be able to, like, because our missions are so aligned and the messaging is so similar, I'm like, we would definitely work well together,
Yes.
collaborating. So,
Yes, which I'm gonna like soft announce that we have like another collab in the works that we're working on. We have a message that we want to bring to the world, but we're
right.
working on how to like bring that message. So, but I'm super excited for that as well. Like, yeah, we have so much that we both want to talk about, and it's really cool, like almost finding somebody who shares that message, who shares similar beliefs, and has like a kind of a different side of the coin in a way as well, just a different side of how we've lived these stories. So no, I think it's super inspiring. Can you just tell us a little bit, like, I know everybody wants to hear a little recap of your story and what led you to like self-love, and what led you to like screaming this from the rooftops.
Yeah. So, I always grew up around fitness and like played sports growing up. So was always very involved with exercising and all of that. And I just remember from like a very young age, like as young as like 12 and 13, that time of being like super hyper aware of my physical self, like my body image, and feeling like really uncomfortable in my own skin to the point where I felt like I hated myself. I was super hyper fixated on my weight all the time. Just like really aware of how my clothes fit. And, like going down this whole cycle of being like in this like diet mentality as young as 12 and 13, which is really sad to think about. And feeling like I needed to work out more and exercise more and just be um, really focused on those things. And uh, playing sports, it was a nice way to channel some of that energy and feel some of that validation that I felt like I was missing a lot in my life. So I gained a lot of that through my sports and competing. Um, but on the flip side of that, there was also this internal battle, this internal struggle that I had with myself when I was competing and working out, where it was like, if I don't achieve this thing, or if I don't meet the goal that I have for myself, then I'm failing, then I'm not enough. And after I finished school and college sports, I had to navigate what health and fitness was going to look like in my life after all of that, where it had always just been integrated in my life. And I knew for me, I was so afraid to lose my, I guess, athleticism and lose my body. And I had always seen like so many women who played sports in high school and were super active growing up. And then once that came out of their life, they just like let it all go. And, it was like something I was so terrified of. So I really dove into my own health journey and figuring that out, what that was going to look like. And all the while, I also got certified in health coaching. So I started doing that online and wanting to help women because I was so passionate about fitness. Well, during that time, I was figuring out, what does this look like for me? And at the same time, how can I help women? And it was almost like these parallels were happening where I was telling women, hey, like the only way to do this in a sustainable way is to stop focusing so much on dieting and, really focus on how you can make this integrated into your lifestyle. And then me preaching that to clients, I was feeling that in my own journey and realizing how much I was struggling with my body image, regardless of what it looked like. I would lose 10 pounds and I thought I would be happy at that weight, and then it was like, no, I need to lose 10 more and then I'll be happy. And it was constant. And I finally got to a point where I was like, I need to take a step back and actually really heal my relationship with myself and my body image and exercise and nutrition instead of focusing so much on um, you know using it as a way to feel in control and validated. And so that's when I started to shift into focusing on that healing journey. And then it turned into the podcast where I just talk about different topics and how we can navigate them and heal through them. And having those conversations that I feel like are not had enough in the fitness industry. And then it also has evolved into apparel where I just put designs on there that really represent self-love and healing our relationship to ourselves and our body.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I'm at with it. And it's still to this day something I'm super passionate about, where I feel like I've done so much healing and come out on the other side of it that I want other women to see how fitness and health can be fun. It can be integrated into our lifestyle. We can have a positive experience with it. It doesn't have to be what we've been taught how it's supposed to be.
I was literally just like thinking about that when you were talking, is like what we've been taught. Like that is like so big on my mind, because like, like I'm all about like this like whole societal standards thing. Like I just want to
Mm-hmm.
like, obviously like one woman with one podcast or whatever cannot like take on this like $1 billion market of like the beauty industry, but literally like these societal standards of like what we're supposed to be or what we're supposed to look like that's literally been my journey, is like growing up from about that same age, like probably about 12 years old or so. My body started changing when I was about halfway through high school, or maybe even like just like my sophomore year, I guess. I just remember gaining like weight, and I just like couldn't, I was like eating my emotions. Like I was definitely
Mm-hmm.
an emotional eater and just like
Me
really
too.
like struggling. Like I struggled so much. Um and back then I don't think, like my parents were armed to like to notice that there was like depression going on or whatever there was for me. And so I gained weight, and I just remember feeling unworthy, like unworthy. Oh my God, like in capital letters, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
just, my brother and sister are very athletic, like you are. They're just like, my brother, like he owned a CrossFit gym for a while. He's like the firefighter, like the buff guy. My sister, she like ran track and basketball and soccer, like everything. And I just wasn't. I just was, like a little bit nerdy and overweight and kind of awkward. Um, and I was bullied for it. And I remember feeling like my whole life, like I don't measure up to my siblings. I'm not cool like them. I'm not good enough. I remember my mom like just making comments because she didn't know any better. She just wanted, her daughter, like she was trying to protect me. And like she would make comments, and I just felt so freaking bad about myself. And like talking about like the diet culture, like, oh my God, back then, like it was like one fad, and I guess still today, but I think we're more aware. But there was just like one fad after another. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember like my mom bought me like the Atkins diet book, like that, like, or like the Zone, like there's like some In the Zone or something. But I just remember like everybody was so focused on body image. And I'll never forget, oh my God, I'll never forget. I got a pair of, do you remember those like super washed out jeans we all used to wear? Like with all of like the strap, like,
Yes.
they were like so freaking bleached. Or we like bleach our own. Oh my God. So I got a pair of hand me down, like super bleached jeans. Like they were so cool. And I was like, oh my God. But they were like 3 sizes too small for me. And I was like, I just remember like hanging them like on like a, closet hanger and putting them like right on like my closet door. So I would see them like every day and I'm going to work out so hard. I like made my mom buy me Slim Fast. Like literally, I was like, we'd go to the grocery store and put Slim Fast in the cart and I'd be like, this is for dad. Like thinking it that it was like, like this isn't for me, in case anybody was watching. Like nobody cared. Um, but now that I look back though, it's just like, damn, like I know that we weren't equipped with the tools that we have today. And I know that we weren't as aware back then. And what a shame because like literally like this like 14-year-old girl was like buying Slim Fast and like trying to like, just do all these things like the cabbage soup and all this crazy stuff just to like fit into a pair of jeans because I thought that that would finally make me cool rather than learning how to truly love myself and, let that be the gateway into like self-love and, you know, just caring about my body in that way and like allowing that to be like, okay, like we can work out as a form of self love and we can like eat healthier as a form of self love, but not, trying to like sneak Slim Fast into the cart as like a form of like kind of like self sabotage,
Mhm.
and just showing so much hatred towards myself. So, all of that to say, like, I resonate and I know like we all resonate so much with your story and just, just talking about in general, talking about what it was like growing up in that time and like having to like cling on to like the
Yeah.
fitness and yeah.
Yeah,
But
and I don't know if you notice it, but like something that I've noticed, I have to catch myself is I've like I would say my healing journey has been like since 2020, so it's been like 4 years that I've been really super focused on it, and I sometimes forget like how far I've come because I will hear other women speaking and they'll be in a state that I used to be in, like whether, I was so far in it of negativity about myself, and I feel so like the gap between that is so it's hard for me to kind of relate to at this point, and that's why I really try to stay connected with I guess like the mission of it and the brand, because sometimes I forget because I'm so different, and I've like I said, I'm on the other side of it now, and it's hard to like remember that there are still people who are in that mindset that I used to be in because I just don't think that way anymore. And I don't know if you notice that either, where you're, very focused on the whole self love and like finding worthiness, where maybe you hear someone say something negative about themselves and you're just like, I'll be so in shock. I'll be like, why would you say that about yourself? And it's like I forgot. Like I used to be that down, like down about myself, and there's still people out there that think that way.
yeah, and there's still like I know well, I kind of had forgotten, to be honest. I had forgotten a lot of that part of my journey of the whole like crash dieting or whatever part of my journey.
Hmm.
And recently one of my mentors, Katie Saltzman, she's been talking about this so much. Like I just keep hearing her say cabbage soup and I'm like, dude, that's right. Like I had forgotten about that part because I think I shoved it down super far because I just didn't want to like remember that I hated myself that much, that I was going to all these lengths. But yeah, she just like reminded me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I forgot about that time period where it was all about like Slim Fast, cabbage soup, Atkins bars, like the Special K cereal thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it just sucks that that we were, led and again, like people didn't really, I don't think, know differently or have the tools
Hmm.
back then. But it just sucks that we were so impressionable back then that we just thought that like this external validation is what's going to make us worthy. and
Yeah.
we have to like look a certain way, or we have to be, we have to achieve. Like I was a huge achiever academically rather than like through athletics, but that similar feeling of like people are gonna like really love me like when I get an A on this paper, or when I do XYZ. And I don't know, I just love like, okay, that's what I want to say is like how much I love like that you're setting reminders for everybody like in different ways. I want to chat about that for a minute. Like when you started making the shirts, that have that reminder of like worthiness and just the messages on there, was that kind of why? Was so that people will see that and just like making it more mainstream? Or like was it
So
because of like those anchor word kind of things?
so for me, when I was health coaching and like doing all of that, I honestly think, as much as I love like talking on the podcast and like speaking like to your audience and like at events and stuff, I I don't know if health coaching was aligned for me at that time. And like specifically working with someone one on one. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll lead back to it. But it felt like there was like a creative piece missing for me for a long time. And I had just like always had this idea in the back of my mind that like once my health coaching business takes off, I'll get like shirts that'll represent my brand.
Yeah.
And when I had kind of decided that I was going to take a step back from health coaching, that's when I honestly started just like playing around with shirt designs. Like the one I'm wearing right now is like one of the shirts I designed a long time ago. And it was like, I just wanted to figure out how to do it, and like be creative, because I always like growing up, used to do like art and loved doing art stuff. So, and I haven't done art in a really long time. And I think that I was just missing like a creative aspect that, um, with like my designs, it's like some of them are just sayings, but others are actual designs that I make. And I just get like these little downloads that come in and are like, oh yeah, like this saying, but like, and then I just like have a vision of what it would look like. And for me, just that creative aspect, but then also tying it to something that feels very, like impactful, for me, is what I don't know. Like, I guess that's just like where it comes from. And recently, just launching, one of my collections for youth girls, like that one was like it. It's the thing that really brought me back to my younger version of myself, because I had kind of remembered like, I had struggled at that age, and I had a girl that I am, friends with on Facebook, and she's a teacher, and she had reached out to me and was like, I wish that like one of my students is like really struggling, and she's like always going on these diets, and we're talking like fifth, sixth grade
Oh
here.
my God. I'm like
Yeah.
literally crying.
And yeah, and that's what, I think that that's what kind of made me like remember like, oh my gosh, like I'm so focused on women and healing, like helping them heal their almost like their inner child wounds with this whole body image thing, that I didn't even think about like how can I reach youth girls
Yeah.
to where they're starting to see the messaging, because that's when it starts. And
Yeah.
um yeah, that's kind of how it's evolved of like, I think it's important for women as adults to heal because we can end the cycle, but also like how do I get this message in front of the younger girls, like the younger version of myself and yourself, where that's what we needed and we didn't have it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Literally, like, how do we do that? Like, I mean, I'm just thinking like from my perspective, like just talking to them or, something like that. I mean, how like what do you think they need to hear?
I've wondered that too, because I'm like, I don't even know how to relate to someone that young. Um, when I think about my journey as like that age, at that age, there were other kids that, at least from my experience, it always felt like I was an outsider as a little kid, and
Mhm.
like I was the only one that really struggled with my confidence. And when I was around my friends, and maybe that's not the case, but like when I perceived my friends, they always seemed like to be like cooler and like seems to be more confident in themselves and get along with more people easily than I could. And so um, when I look back, I always just feel like I was really alone with how I felt.
Mm.
And so when you think about reaching youth girls, for me, it's like, well, I don't know if all youth girls feel this way, but it's kind of like there's always that hidden one, you know, that where she just doesn't say how she's feeling. And it's just kind of like becoming part of her narrative.
I met, I went to like a local networking event last night and I met an author. Her name is Kelly. She wrote a book called Norris the Nostrilier. I can barely pronounce that, but it's a children's book.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote this really cool book. It's about just a young girl who hates her nose and is on a journey to like find the perfect nose. And she's like looking at everyone's noses and like trying, I guess she's like trying on different nostrils and things like that. And then, of course, in the end, she learns that like her nose is perfect the way it is, like it's perfect for her. And we got to talking about that and how some of the messages are so like versatile, right? Like love yourself and like at any age. Cause I was talking to her about like bringing the book into my retreat in November. I was like, could you like read this to like my group of 30 and 40-year olds? Cause like I think the message is so important. Um, but literally like what you're saying, just bringing it back to kids and like I think resources like that and like your shirts and like everything, I think it's just so important for women to just keep seeing these reminders at a young age because exactly what you said. I mean, I was gosh, just that feeling of unworthiness but trying to hide it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder like when you said, from the outside we might look okay or the other girls that you were, hanging out with, they looked confident, they seemed confident, but were they really? And same thing kind of like in this book, this children's book where it's like people probably, hanging out with this Norris, like they probably didn't know she hated her nose until like later on, right? The story comes out, um but we can go and seem so confident and then people might not know that like we really need help on the inside and we do. And so just learning how to connect with
Yeah.
these.
Yeah. It's definitely like, that's a good point of the book that you mentioned. It just being something as simple as that, where even like the kids don't really realize that they're in for a lesson with the book
Yeah,
at the end. I think that that's really interesting how she did that. And I know you have like a self love journal book.
yeah,
And I am like, I have always like wondered how you got to like that point of where
yeah,
you felt like this is what needs to be in the world and what inspired you to make that, um, and how it just like came about.
yeah. What's so crazy is just same thing kind of like with what you're saying as far as like the message that needs to be shared and all of that, like literally just seeing the word worthy on like a shirt that's made for like a fifth grader, like that's freaking awesome. And so kind of like it goes along with that point of I created that workbook just because I think at any age like we really need those reminders of who we are and what makes us special. And so throughout the book, it's definitely not geared towards the youth, but throughout the book it just talks about like what did you do for yourself today, or what was a compliment somebody gave you, or what's your favorite thing about yourself. Just simple questions. They're so I sometimes I'm almost like looking at my journal and I'm just like, whoa, like it's extremely simple, but I'm like sometimes I do feel like, oh, should I like be blasting out to the world, because it's nothing crazy, it's not like rocket science, but it's taking the time to sit down and truly like pour into ourselves and remember that we're worthy and that we're special and that we're deserving of, sharing, just being loved and showing up as ourselves. And I think though that's like the message that gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, like truly. And I'm just literally when you were talking about the example of a fifth grader, like literally I started crying because I'm just like, oh my God, like that's what leads us to being, adult who has self-love issues and worthiness issues is because at that age, when we're super young and impressionable, we didn't believe that we were deserving of being loved, deserving of being worthy. We didn't see ourselves as worthy, beautiful people. And so we just go through life just kind of already feeling like that. And I don't think that I think that like we hide it so well in a way, and people aren't in tune because unless you're really, really like practicing the tools yourself and you're in this kind of self development world, you won't see that necessarily. You might not notice those subtle signs, and kids are good at hiding things, and kids are good at, maybe not showing. Maybe they look confident, maybe they look like they have a bunch of friends, but on the inside you're so hurt. And then going through life with that feeling, it just builds, like those limiting beliefs just build and build and build to the point where then you're in your 30s and you just don't feel deserving of anything, and you're just like, all the tendencies that we get, all of the limiting beliefs that we're holding, all of the, just self-doubt that we have. And then you start your journey, you start chipping away all of that, but it takes so long because there are years and years of us holding all of that, and but yeah, I mean, that's truly why I created the journal, is just because I want women to like stop and think about this and stop and take time to really start to like heal those wounds of not feeling good enough, of not feeling worthy, not feeling deserving.
Yeah. What was like the moment for you where you were like, I don't know, I guess like your wake up call of
Mm.
everything, like realizing that the way that you were thinking and believing about yourself was not the way it had to be? What was your moment?
Oh my gosh, the short version is I I was like kind of living life, my mid 20s. I was living life kind of checking off all those boxes, all those societal standard boxes. It's like the certain career and the car and like white picket fence, and you have to marry a guy that looks like this and blah blah blah. And I literally had like almost like the whole thing checked off. I was like, oh, I'm doing pretty good. I feel really good about myself. And again, like side note, those external factors were making me feel good about myself. Um, but one day, the guy I was with, he kind of hinted like about a ring, and I remember like I found it, and my heart just sank, and like not in the good way, my mind, and I just felt like super trapped. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like I like the job, the white picket fence, the car we're driving, the guy, all of it just suddenly felt so, just like it was like just trapping me. And I finally had like this realization over, it took a little bit of time and some spiritual journey like mixed in there, but I finally had this realization that like this isn't right for me. And I'm only doing all of these things to try to convince myself that like I'm worthy based on, the accomplishments that I'm accomplishing. And just finally fast forward, like it took a lot of courage to be like, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm gonna, I had to end the relationship. I moved, like, and then I went on, like, I call it my eat, pray, love journey. Like I like went on this whole journey of like doing all the things and like trying to really find myself again. Because then when you take away all like your worth from these accomplishments, when that's gone, it's like, who am I really? What have I, like the last 20, 30 years of my life, like I have literally been building up to this point to like think that I am somebody, and I'm not her. Like I don't even know who I am, right? And yeah, and so finally going on that journey to truly like figure out like who I am, what lights me up, what makes me happy, all of that kind of stuff. And that led into learning that like I am worthy as I am. Like I am, able to love myself, and I'm allowed to love myself regardless of like what I've achieved, who I marry, what I do with my life. Like it's just it's just so crazy. And again, like I almost feel like it sounds so simple, but it's not, because it's so ingrained in us that we have to have all of these outside accomplishments. We have to look a certain way, drive a certain car, whatever, to like be worthy, which it's so sad, honestly.
Yeah, you remind me of like when I first started I guess like my health coaching and healing, all of that stuff. I also struggled a lot with well, college softball had always been the thing that made me feel like I matter.
Yeah.
And, I always like had big goals every single season, worked really hard like all year up until the season. And then it was over. And it was like my whole identity, just like, what I had planned on doing for my career. I decided my last semester as a senior that I wasn't going to do it. And it was
Wow.
just like all of these identity, um, you know, what I was carrying just got like stripped away. I moved out of state to go be with my husband, and I didn't have a car. It was just like I was so dependent on him for so long. Had no idea what I was going to do with my career. Um, had the thing that like I had been pursuing for, I don't even know, like 18 years of my life was just done, no family. And I remember really struggling, not just with my health journey, but feeling like I mattered and, feeling like the career, what am I going to do with my career? How am I don't even have a car, like all these things. I was working it was during COVID. So like, it was really hard to find a job at the time, especially in like the fitness industry. And we worked by the Home Depot, and I walked to the Home Depot for work, working in customer service with my new degree in exercise science. And here
Right?
I was working at the Home Depot with no car. And I was just like, I just remember feeling like so worthless. I was like, this is like, what the hell? And like, just, I don't know, like, and then my husband, had his career, and he was like financially supporting us. So then I felt the pressure. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm dragging us down.
Yeah.
And it was just like a really low time, like as far as self-esteem goes. And I think how you had said, it's a very like slow chip away process, but
Yeah.
something that I've realized in this, I guess, fourth year of my healing journey is that when you can like strip away everything and like see yourself for who you are and like know yourself, finally know yourself, and like feel the love of that and like feel proud,
Yeah.
even of the things that like you used to hate about yourself or like the mistakes you used to make, when you can feel like at ease with yourself with those things, I feel like that's when you've like really healed. Um, because like for a long time, I was like preaching so many things and like trying to show up as this person on the outside, but then
Yeah.
internally I was like, I like had self-loathing, I felt so useless and like I didn't have my shit together. So I was
Yeah.
like, like I'm a phony basically. And I was like preaching these things, but then at the same time, I was like feeling the exact thing that I was trying to preach for other people.
Yeah.
So I think
Totally.
that it's kind of tough sometimes being that person trying to preach these things, but then go on
Yeah.
that journey at the same
But
time.
it's like also it's tough, but it's also really beautiful because it makes you relatable. It you know how it feels.
Hmm.
So, and it's like I love like kind of shining the light on that a little bit of like healers need healing too. Like, like you get to coach women through all of this, but you also have your own struggles and your own things that you're going through. You're a few steps ahead, of course, of the women that you're teaching, but you've been there and you truly know how it feels. You just reminded me, you are also like a huge proponent of mirror work. I remember you talking about mirror work, and I love how in depth you get when you talk about it because it's also like one of my like signature practices. Like at every retreat, we do a little mirror work. It's super cool, but I would love if you want to chat about that because I love how you explain it. I love how you get deep. Like you explain it way better than I do. So like, can you please?
I hope
Because
I can remember what I said last time. No, okay. So, like I said, this year has been like my true year of healing. All the other years were just like absorbing information, I feel like, and like
yeah,
learning about personal development. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's a good point, but then I don't apply it to my own life. And this year was the year that I finally started applying stuff to my life and like feeling the feelings and like crying and like like literally getting super vulnerable with myself. And one of the ways that I did this, and I was introduced to this from a book that I read, and it was about mirror work. And um, the way that you do it is you basically like, and there's a lot of times, if you are aware, when you maybe you go into a bathroom and your mind naturally is like, oh, you look ugly today, or like, oh my gosh, like look at you're breaking out so bad. Like we naturally like critique, and it's just automatic. And I finally got to the point where I was becoming super aware of it, where if I was just going to go use the bathroom and I catch my reflection and it's like, you got to point out all of the negative things. And I was like, okay, instead of doing that, every time I see myself in the mirror, I'm going to compliment myself, or I'm going to say something kind to myself. And I took it to the point where it was like, for a few minutes in my day, I would just stand in front of the mirror and like literally look myself in the eye and tell myself exactly what I needed to hear, even though I may not believe it. And it's super like raw, and like it's such a vulnerable state that you could put yourself in. And if you take it a step further, you can do it naked. And I know this, like, everyone's probably like, oh my God, that
I'm
sounds
scared.
so uncomfortable. Like, it really is, because you're looking at yourself in your most vulnerable state, and you're saying the things eye to eye, and like everything right there of like what you need to hear, whether it's like, you are beautiful, you are worthy, you are enough. And it's like, I get emotional just thinking about it, because it's like those aren't things that we hear enough, and we definitely don't tell ourselves these things, and like allow ourselves to feel it. And that's where you take it to the next level, is like when you say these things, you feel the emotions that come with it. And nobody wants to do that. I know we all just want to surface level, like say the thing and be like, check the box. Yep, I did my mirror work today. But like when you can actually feel the emotion that comes from you giving yourself that love that you need, it is transformative. And you like can let go, and you can release things that maybe you were holding on to that you don't even understand. And that's okay. Like you don't have to understand it, but the point of it is to release it and like give yourself the love that you need. And the other thing, as far as like mirror work goes, that I started doing was like dancing in the mirror.
Ooh, cool.
um, which is weird. Like it feels weird at first, because you're like, wow, I'm
Yeah.
like, you're like judging yourself dancing. But when you dance, it's I don't know, for me it's like it allows me to like just give my body language in a way, where it's like we all need to vent sometimes and like get things off our chest. That's how we say it. But like the body has no language, so dancing
So
or exercising, whatever, I feel like allows the body to release energy and like let energy flow through. And again, when you're looking at yourself in the mirror with no judgment, just allowing your body to do what it wants to do and going with that. It's just such a powerful thing to again see yourself in that state and be okay with it, and say like, there's no judgment here. And it's not going to happen overnight, but I feel like the more that you do it, I do it in between my sets for my workouts now, because it's so regular for me. um,
cool.
we have mirrors in our gym, and so like in between my sets, I'll whatever song I'm listening to, it's like I just want to dance, and like I'll look at myself, and it's like, you go, girl. Like,
Good.
there's nothing judgmental about it, and it's super powerful.
I dude, I think you know that about yourself. I hope you do, that you are such gosh, you the way that you talk about not judging and the way that you talk about giving grace, I really admire the way you speak about that, because you are not the kind of person who's like, well, I'm just going to give myself grace and like forget about all of it and like not do my workout and be like, oh, here's your grace. But I love how you show up and you're always posting your workouts online and you're always posting everything, but you talk about the real thoughts that you're having. Like, I didn't get all these sets. I didn't lift as heavy as I wanted to, but like, I still love myself and I'm still worthy, even though I didn't hit this mark. And like, I hope you know, like, that's super impactful the way you speak about that. And like, for anyone listening who's not like watching your stories, like, they need to be, because it always inspires me. And I'm not like, I'm not your workout girly at all, but like, it still inspires me in my daily life just to be like, okay, I
Yeah.
didn't hit this mark I thought I was going to, but like, I get to like have no judgment towards myself. So yeah,
Yeah,
the
I
way,
really appreciate you saying that because when I type those things out sometimes and I put it
yeah,
up, it's really uncomfortable because I'm like, does anyone actually even read this long ass little thing with me doing my exercise? Like, it feels so dumb sometimes, but I'm just like,
no,
whatever. Like, if one person reads it and like they get something from it, then
yeah.
that good. Then that's all that matters. So I appreciate you saying
Yeah,
that.
no, and it's inspiring. I've been trying to be more like open to like sharing some of those feelings as well. Like, just the true thoughts you're having, like, like when your camera flips open and it's facing you and you didn't expect that, and like you're just like, oh shit. Especially for me lately, in the middle of a night shift that will happen, and I'm just like, oh no, girl, like no.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But just like the other day, I took like a selfie, and I was super inspired by the way you've been talking about this. And I literally was like, well, let me just actually click the selfie of this moment. And I posted it, and just writing about my thought process too, of just like, I am not like feeling my best. I'm not looking my best, but that doesn't mean that I, need to beat myself up. It doesn't mean that I'm unworthy. It doesn't mean that that I can't love myself, because like, it's still me underneath these like black circles and like this like exhaustion. It's still me under there, and I still get to love her. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it also like by us doing that, it gives other women permission of like because when I like you just said pointed out with when I do it, but like also when I see other women do it, if they point out like I intentionally don't have a filter on and I know I'm breaking out, I'm not wearing any makeup and like it's just like yeah, like look at her show up with confidence like that. And I think that that's a really great reminder and even for women who are on that journey and maybe they're not necessarily preaching it full time but like recognizing that them allowing themselves to be vulnerable and still feel confident in themselves is giving permission to someone who's like struggling with it on the inside and not really saying anything.
Hmm. Totally, totally. And again, back to that point that we were saying of like, as somebody who mentors other women through these thoughts and these feelings, like, we get to show up and be vulnerable ourselves and show that like there's still these moments, but we get to work through them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like the biggest thing that we have, is like, we have the tools to work through them now. We are able to switch our mindsets. We're able to like remind ourselves how worthy we are. And I think that's like the biggest part, is like coming back to that. Because back, when I was 13 years old trying to like fit into these like bleached ass denim jeans, I like did not have those tools. And so I felt, every time I would try that pair of jeans on, I would feel so low about myself. And, if they didn't fit or something. And now I have the tools to just be like, no, dude, I'm so worthy. Like, I don't, like, it's okay. Like, yeah, no judgment. Like, so it feels so good.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to thank you so much. Like, I have so many notes. I'm like looking at my paper right now, just all the things you said. I wanted to ask you, and if you don't remember, that's okay, but you mentioned that there was a book that you had read, that kind of where you learned about the mirror work and that kind of thing. If you remember it, I would like love to like hear about it. If
Yes.
not, yeah.
Um, I actually, so now that I'm thinking about it, I am questioning if that was where I learned mirror work, but it was a super powerful book for me called Lady Balls.
Ooh, okay. I've
It
never heard
actually taught me all about like journaling, in a way that I had never really understood journaling. Um, but that and then yeah I honestly am like thinking back I can't remember she also has like a ton of YouTube content where that may have been where I learned about mirror work but I don't know for whatever reason I remember I was on TikTok one day and I was watching this girl's content and she was like I'm reading this book called Lady Balls and it's teaching me I mean it touches on like feminine and masculine energy how to like balance that back out in your life. So it just taught me so much about myself. And actually, it was the first book that I was like, I'm going to apply this to my life.
super cool.
And it just was like the catapult to my healing. journey this year.
I love it. Okay, this is awesome. I have never heard of that book, so now I have to read it because
Yeah, it's
I love
kind of
that.
funny, like lady balls, but like I mean, it's good stuff. I really really liked the book.
Oh, cool. Oh, well, I just like literally want to say thank you so much for coming on today. And I wanted to ask you, like, of course, like, where can everyone find you? What do you have coming up? Like, how can we connect and get into your world? And just also if you could give us like one self-love tip, like your one thing, like maybe it's reading that book or like whatever it is that you would tell everyone to go do.
Okay, so our Instagram page is at We Are Love Your Body Now, and we're also on TikTok. The podcast is Love Your Body Now, so you can find everything from our Instagram page. We have it linked, and then my apparel line is also linked on Instagram. Currently, right now, what we had mentioned earlier. So I just launched our youth worthy line. So I launched basically a couple of different color shirts and hoodies with one of our popular worthy designs. It's a heart-shaped worthy. So that just launched on our website, and anyone can, if you have daughters, if you have a little sister, if you have nieces, this, it can be for anyone that is in your life that you're like, oh my gosh, she would look so cute wearing this. And you can also buy a matching one. So that is currently what's on my page. And then as far as number one self-love tip I goes, I guess like when I think about where I'm at right now and what like I wish I would have applied into my life sooner as far as like people pleasing goes, because I feel like people pleasing is like the opposite of loving yourself because you're
Yes.
so wrapped up in making the other person happy, and you kind of ignore what makes you happy and like what's aligned with you. So I think I said this to a girl that I work with the other day, where she was talking about how she gets like really bad anxiety and like worries about upsetting people. I had said something like, I'm just at a point in my life now where, first of all, you can tell yourself, like, well, what's the worst case scenario in this
Mm,
situation? And typically it's not that bad. And everyone's entitled to their own opinion. So they are allowed to be mad at you, whatever. But like, I don't know, just if it makes you happy, if you feel aligned doing it, then like give yourself permission to do that, and whatever happens after that, like it's all okay. Like it doesn't have to, I mean, it's not going to work out the way that like you always want it to, but I don't know, I'm just like in a point in my life where I'm like, if it doesn't make me happy, then I don't like, get it
yeah.
out of my life, get it out of my way, like I don't care. Or if I make a decision and I feel uncomfortable because someone else got upset by it, I'm kind of like, like they're allowed to feel their emotions. Like it's okay. Like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just like try to honor myself the most these days. And
I love that.
it's, yeah.
Oh,
How
honor
about,
yourself.
want to know your self-love tip, and then also
Right?
like where my listeners can connect with you.
Yes. Okay, so everyone can connect with me at Hello Audrey Rose. It's same thing. It's all on Instagram and like everything's there. My podcast, retreats, all of that. And I do have a free self-love challenge that I'm like super obsessed with because I just finished like creating it. So it's 6 days long and it's full of free videos where you can come in like each day and do a different practice. So it's a lot of like the signature things I use in my retreats and stuff like that. But you can just DM me the word challenge on Instagram and get access to that. Um, and I think my self love tip is going to be kind of piggybacking off what we were talking about is like, look in the mirror a little bit more often. And I was going to say something else, but this is like really like what's coming to mind, like coming out is just look in the mirror more often. Like give yourself a smile. Like when your phone, opens up to that ugly selfie thing that it's the wrong angle, like just smile to yourself. Like make that, like be like, yes, I'm that bitch. Like that is me. Like just be proud. Like, you know, like you pass the storefront window and you like catch your reflection, like just, you know, like hype yourself up because like you truly are just such a rare and unique person. Like there's a quote that I read that we are 4 billion years of like process to be in this body who we are right now, like the biology, like the science is insane, but it takes like 4 billion years for us to like be where we are right now. So be like proud of, you know, like that is like rare as heck, the fact that like you are here right now in this body. So like look in the mirror, smile, and yeah, you should be so proud. Also, I have to shout this out on this episode. So for everyone who follows us, y'all need to check out our dogs because I swear that they were like twins, like separated somehow. I literally, mine has bigger ears. She's because yours is full shepherd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's mixed with a little Doberman, and so she has like these huge ears. But I swear, I sent a picture. to, so you had something in your stories not long ago, and I legitimately screenshotted it and I sent it to my sister, and I was like, look, like because it was both your dogs, and I was like, look, Kleina's at my friend's house, like I was like, my friend's babysitting her for the day, and literally my sister, it took her like a while, and then finally she's like, oh, that's super cool, and then she texted me back like a few hours later, and she's like, that's not your dog.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I'll see your stories of your dog, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like their sisters. They look so alike.
I know, like they have just similar markings. I'm like obsessed. So I love it. But yeah, well anyways, like thank you so much for coming on. Like this was a blast. I'm glad we
Yes,
got to talk.
yes. Finally, I'm so
Yeah.
glad.
Yeah.